Have you ever considered that you exist? Like, seriously, that you exist, right? And the second part of that is, have you ever considered that other people can actually see you? Yeah, it sounds bizarre. The reason I say this is because if you're anything like me, you spend the majority of your time inside your mind, right? And rarely do you, as a human being, actually acknowledge that you yourself exist. Yes, I know it sounds bizarre, but let's just think about it in terms of this. If you're a gamer, you might know about a game called Cyberpunk. In the game Cyberpunk, you play as a character called V. But the thing is with V, they never show his face. The only time you see V's face is when he looks in the mirror. So he'll stop and he'll look in the mirror like this, and you'll see the face that you created for your character, your avatar, right? Now, on that point of creating your character, when we are first born in life, I don't know about you, but I didn't get the create character screen. Meaning, I didn't pick my height, I didn't pick my sex, I didn't pick my race, I didn't pick where I'd be born, or the place, nor the time, right? All these things are down to luck. And of course, the way I show up in the world and my avatar is all genetics.
どうやら我々と地球人との血が混じり合うと強力なパワーを持つ雑種ができるようだな。スーパーサイヤ人ってとこか。
Excuse me for not being an alien monster that never changes!
We Saiyans evolved as a warrior race. We retain our youthfulness so we can fight longer.
I guess your race didn't evolve with enough brains to have good manners.
Where am I going with this? What has self-awareness, genetics, and actually being able to see yourself and see other people see you have anything to do with anything, right? Now that third one was kind of flaky, like, whoa, maybe I lost my train of thought there, right? But hey.
Yeah, boy.
The reason I was asking you, have you ever actually been aware that you exist, right? I know it's very simple, like, oh, do you exist? Do you exist, right? Of course I exist. I'm talking on the camera. I see myself every day. But the truth is, as humans, we rarely ever actually acknowledge ourselves as humans and how we show up in reality, right? We're a lot like that little alien in Men in Black. You know when they do the autopsy and they open up the face, they press the button and he's just in there piloting a human mecha, right? That is kind of what we are, right? We're like brains floating about in reality, making contact with other brains. 99% of the operations your body carries out are autonomous, right? Your heart beats on its own, your blood pumps on its own, your food gets digested on its own, your brain sends like little electrical signals through neurons, I believe, that trigger like muscles to be able to move and flex and interact with reality. But rarely do you ever actually acknowledge yourself as existing.
What am I doing with my life?
And it comes back to the same thing of self-awareness. You might see yourself in the mirror if you're checking before you go out, like, am I looking out of place? Oh, I'm brushing my teeth, I'm looking in the mirror. But you're not actually looking at yourself, right? You don't see you. This comes back to the whole snapping into consciousness thing, right? Bro, actually exists. You know that little meme where like, I can't believe I actually exist. I can't believe people can actually see me. That's a real thing, right? It happens twice in life, right? The first time when you're really young and you get snapped into your first person shooter, right? You become your own MC.
Rise, my child. What is this feeling? The rivers of unrestrained curiosity flowing through my baby veins.
In the online world, there's this thing called NPC, right? Which relates to games again, right? Which means a non-playable character. Meaning that non-playable character doesn't have the autonomy like me and you have, right? They simply just follow the program of the game, right? They're Wreck-It Ralphs, but they're not stepped out to be Wreck-It Ralph yet. But the problem with that is, when you say someone is an NPC, what you're actually saying is they have no internal dialogue. What is an internal dialogue? It will sound something like this. It's kicking in. Right? Sounds bizarre. Maybe even a little mentally ill, right? But it's the reality that most of us on the planet acknowledge we have this inner voice which sounds like us, that we confer with, right? So to speak, right? It's not like oh, he's hearing voices in his head. No, it's more like I'm thinking about thinking, and I'm thinking about what I'm about to do before I do it, but all of this is happening simultaneously. Anyway, the first time most people have this experience of actual self-awareness and being in reality is when they're a little kid. Now, I recall my first experience of actually feeling like, oh wow, I exist. Now, tell a lie, I had 3. The first time I remember, this is not a Terrence Howard moment.
You're falling and you hit the bottom and you wake up. Mm-hmm. That was my first memory, but I didn't wake up here. I was inside my mother's womb.
oh, I remember being bored. No, I don't, right? The earliest memory I have is probably sitting in one of those little bouncy high chairs, right? And the reason why I think that memory was so potent is because of the emotions around the area, right? The things that were happening around me at the time, as a child, right? Let's just say that was a night of a riot in a particularly notorious place in England, right? Where I grew up, right? That was a night of a riot and I was a little baby, right? But the area and the energy was so high, I particularly remember that night, right? But the second event of actually being aware and actually being able to walk around on my own as a child, right? I could have been no older than about 9, right? And I remember walking to the shop past this little alleyway where I always walk, right? And I realised to myself, I say right a lot, don't I? See, it's like self-awareness. But I realised to myself, my eyebrows are constantly like this. Like, I feel stress in my head, right? And then it was like a little out-of-body experience where I can actually see myself. I was like, wow, I'm constantly walking around with a screw face, right? I'm not even 10 years old yet. Maybe I'm probably younger than 9, right? But as an adult, I can like self-analyze and be like, why did I feel like that at the time? Did I feel like I had to put up this kind of defense mechanism so I feel safe in a dangerous place and other people wouldn't trouble me kind of thing? But that's all a part of that self-awareness kind of thing, right? Actually realizing how you exist in reality and that other people perceive you and you perceive other people, right? But that's secondary to my main point. The second time in life where I had that self-awareness, that kind of reset, it was in my mid-20s. Now, in all reality, human brains do not fully develop until they're in their mid-20s, right? And for some people it varies, but I can actually be honest and say I spent a lot of my teenage years dossing and smoking weed with friends, right? So that probably did at some level inhibit my brain's development, right?
Neuroscientists believe the difference in development between the emotion-driven part of the brain and the rational part may also be the reason teenagers are more likely to take risks or experience addiction compared with adults. Puberty also brings with it increased activity in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that relates to self-evaluation. This change can improve teenagers' understanding of social interactions. Post-puberty, the brain continues to develop. Brain tissue in the prefrontal cortex increases connections, joining the emotional and motor centers. Your brain reaches full development by your 30s, and white matter reaches the highest volume at about 40. But it's not all downhill from there. As you age, plasticity allows your brain to keep changing and adapting.
But after that point, that age where I had that experience of becoming more self-aware, and it wasn't just like it was like, oh wow, my brain's finished cooking, like I'm ready, I'm actually a human again. Like, well, I'm actually a human for the first time.
But it is gonna bother you because you're human, and I was human. I am human still.
After coming through that experience, it did feel like, oh wow, I'm actually a human again, right? Which is mad. It was more forced upon me than actually just experiencing like waking up and then somebody turned down the CPR and turned up like whatever nice filter you've got, right? It was more like, now I'm actually part of the world and I'm playing the game. Let's say now I'm actually an adult, right? We've got 3 times from my personal experience of actually experiencing self-awareness, right? Now I've babbled and gone long off the track where I actually started having this thought, right? Because at the end of the day, all of this is a shower thought, right? I was actually going to sit here and record like this, but then I realized if I did sit here and record like this, right, then there would be too much glare. Why did we get into this whole self-awareness fiasco, right? Or this whole topic? Because I was in the gym the other day, right? See how life works? It's all links together. Just follow me down the rabbit hole, Neo. Trust me, yeah? I was in the gym the other day, yeah? And I was live streaming while I was in the gym, right? And I was interacting with my subscribers, right? Shout out to you if you know who you are, right? But we was talking about something silly, right? And then he was like, oh, we need to find you a wife of this particular race, right? And I started laughing, right? And I was like, you know what? I think I'm giving up with trying to find a wife and that, because the place where I live is predominantly another race. Let's just say that, right? And maybe I have my own preferences and possibly I'm a little bit stuck up, right? Possibly, right?
Oh, so attractive.
But hey, I've had my experiences in life and I kind of know what I want and I know what I don't want, right? So that all aside, right? Because that is still part of the major overarching conversation, right? I basically was like, I've given up, right? Even though in reality I didn't actually fucking try, right? I've never actually tried, right? Let's just keep it a buck. I've never actually tried, right?
What's the matter with you?
Tomorrow. Let's do it tomorrow.
There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow.
1 or 2 times I did try, quote unquote, on dating apps. I was like, oh, you know what? I don't think I'm good at taking pictures, and that was my main excuse to bail me out of the conversation, like why I found a wife yet, right?
Welcome to video dating.
My name is Mr. Fraser. The doctor gave my wife glasses and she leave me. I could kill that man. My wife and I were very happy. The only trouble is she oversexed. And quite frankly, she was killing me. Then bam, she get the glasses and all of a sudden it's all over. She gone. So now, I am seeking a new partner to come into my life. She can be as sexy as she wants. The only stipulation is definitely no glasses. Thank you very much for video dating.
And there's other elements to that as well, but like I said, I'll take 80% of the blame of that for me just being lazy, and then interject a little bit more of actually how society perceives a black guy that looks like me, and then the area I am, the location. We'll put that into my 80%, right? But then the 20% is the same thing I've always known since I was a kid. I am unphotogenic, right? Like, I know it sounds funny to say, like, oh, you're unphotogenic. No, but I am literally photogenically challenged, right? And I always have been, right? And it's not to say that I'm a looker off the camera, because I ain't. But when the camera comes on, it's like that episode in Dexter, right? Where Dexter gets a real full-on black pill moment and he realizes, I look terrible every time I take a picture, right? So here is a clip from that.
You can't have brains and be a model too, but Einstein the model this khakis and he had the brains. And Schmarky Schmark model this khakis and he's a beefcake. I am not a beefcake. I am just a cupcake. What is so funny? It's just that I wouldn't say cupcake. Then what would you say? I would say you're more like a strawberry shortcake. Ooh, Chad Princely. He's my favorite.
Now, why do I bring that up, right? That relates a lot to what's happening now in modern times, right? With the self-awareness thing. In that clip, Dexter was literally becoming aware of how other people perceive him based on how he perceives the interaction with them. Now, through that first period of life, you're not really aware of that unless you're like, I don't mean to call you out or say there's anything wrong with you, but unless you're like kind of hyper narcissistic, or you very much care about your looks and you're materialist and all of that kind of shit, right? Which is nothing wrong with that to an extent, right? But that's just not the kind of life I was living, right? I was living, I can't even say cerebral because I'm not even smart like that. I'm just very introverted in the mind, right? So I was living a life in here, right? It mattered to me more about what I produced out of my mind and out of my thoughts and my creativity than how people look at me as an individual, right? And that was just a part of growing up. But bringing it back round to Dexter, Dexter realised how he shows up because Dee Dee was teasing him about his school pictures, but he also realised it was something about him uniquely in the world, right? Now, how does this link back to self-awareness and like participation in the game, right? The game of life. And knowing that you didn't get that start screen where you could decide what your genetics were going to be, your height, your sex, your color, your race, how you show up in reality, your avatar, right? What that episode shows you, as a kid watching it, it didn't seem that serious, but there's another interesting episode I'll get to in a minute. Dexter goes on a journey of figuring out how to look smacks, but in a funny cartoon kind of way. So what does he do? He goes through all the magazine clippings and he picks out what is socially acceptable as a standardized good looking person, right? And he gets the hair, the eye color, the nose, the jawline, all these things Dexter puts together in this crazy little machine he creates, right? Because he's a little genius, right? So he does that now and he puts himself through this machine and he comes out looking like some ridiculous Chad, right? He looks goofy, but based on what society standards say all of these things are supposed to be perfection, right? He creates that, right? But of course there's a moral of the story is to say basically he was always fine how he was, right? But anyway, he gets to the school pictures and by the time he arrives at the point where he's supposed to have this ultra photogenic moment, his face melts, right?
At last, the lighting perfection. Now to immortalize my face. With the push of this button, the world will soon see how handsome I am.
What's here?
What's here? School photos! Dexter, you closed your eyes.
Come on, honey, it's not that bad.
It's okay, Dad. I know it's not good. I was trying to be someone I'm not. But now I know that if you just be yourself, everything will be A-okay. Not if you want to be popular.
That was a perfect example of what black pill and looks maxing is, right? Now, what is looks maxing? Looks maxing goes back to that thing I said in the beginning about having your stats and being able to pick what you look like. Like the character you would create for V, if you care, because I'm not the type of person that cares like that, you would make V look the best you could possibly make him, to your eyes, right? To your preference. Whatever socially acceptable standard of beauty you decide.
They giving this nigga anime hairstyles? Hold on. Why is there only one option for the nigga, man? That don't make sense.
Really? Well, how many do you guys have?
But looks maxing is saying, let's look at all of these actual tangible real things about you as an individual, right? How other people perceive you, right? Your height, your teeth, your color, right? Your skin, like things that actually you could actually put in a table and quantify and say these things actually exist, and you can compare these to the next person, right? That is the most based black pill stuff. But looks maxing is saying, let's work on the things you can actually change, right? Now, of course, if you're Jack Hanma, you're gonna get height surgery, right? But for the most of us, that's kind of ridiculous. But there's a whole online industry within the whole manosphere thing that focuses on selling men and women, right? Beauty products and ways to make yourself appear better, right? It's nothing to do with actually truly being a better person and having better connections with people. It's all about breaking that barrier to be able to have connections with people, right? Which is the cruel reality of the world we live in. That mixed with the self-awareness thing made me actually say to myself at one point in life, I don't care, right? And this goes back to my upbringing, right? I've always been a crusty kid, an ashy kid. I have asthma, I have eczema, I have hay fever. I had bad teeth, right? Until a certain age where I was able to do for myself, right? I could scrounge together enough money to actually go and find out how to do it and take care of myself, right? But I've always been a kid that you wouldn't say was conventionally good looking, right? But I didn't know that, right? I just existed like that, right? For a very long time, and I still do, right? But the difference is now I'm an adult and I don't care about all of that kind of stuff. Someone will be like, try and play the struggle Olympics with how I look, like how they perceive me looking on the camera. I'll give you an example like this, right? At one point I was like, oh, you know what, yeah, if I go bald, right, I'm just gonna grow a beard, right? But guess what? My beard don't connect. And that's another societal standard, like, oh, it must be like this, it must be like that, right? You get trolled for it, and people come in my life like, you look like LeBron, like, all this kind of dumb shit. As a man, right, I'm not saying I'm no manly man, alpha chad man, no. I just had, like, really old parents. Like, my parents were both well in their 40s and approaching 50s by the time they had me, if I remember correctly. Maybe I'm a little bit off like that, but hey, God rest both of their souls if God exists, right? But they're old, they're dead and gone, right? So they raised me from a traditional point of view. So these kinds of things that all my other age range mates thought about, I didn't think about, right? I thought we were just supposed to like people for who they are, like their personality and the things they do, right? No, I found out the hard way, like everyone else finds out, we're judging you on all these superficial things, right? And it's always been like that, and you just didn't know. So that is why I'm making this video, so you can figure out that a bit earlier before I do. Now, what you decide to do with that information is entirely up to you, right? Because personally, I don't give a fuck, right? And the reason I don't give a fuck is because I am that kind of introverted living in my mind thing, right? I can go days and days and days and days without any human interaction or speaking to anybody. But that's me, and that's part of the reason why I forget I exist. And I also forget other people perceive me. But at the end of the day, take this information and just think about it, right? And the other episode that, like, a little plus bonus at the end, right? The other episode that I used to love as a kid, right, and I re-saw recently, was an episode from a cartoon called Home Movies, right? It's supposed to be like deadpan humor, right? Satire kind of thing.
I had eczema once, but that's not contagious.
I have eczema.
Yeah.
Wow. Where do you have it? I have it on elbow, knee, crotch, and underarm, and I have head eczema, which is called cradle cap. What is cradle cap? Yeah, I'll show you.
As a kid, I was like, you know what? I have eczema, right? Anyway, that's just a bonus point that means nothing to nobody, right? But you sitting there right now, you probably thinking, oh, worrying about all of these conventional standards of beauty, right? And I'm not telling you not to, right? Because, like I said, I try to be very based, and because of that experience in my mid-20s, it made me too real with how human interactions are, right? I see things, and maybe I might not say it, right, but in my mind I'm like, that's bullshit, they're really doing this, they think this, and I'm not projecting. Oh, I am a bit, right? Let's just keep it a buck, right? Defense mechanism and projecting is all part of it, but most of it is operating from a place of trauma and knowing how to tackle that as like building yourself back up as a human being, right? But anyway, so yeah, like I don't want to make this into a, oh, you should feel good about who you are kind of thing. My version of that, right, is very much more selfish and belligerent because of the way life has treated me. It's not that I should feel good, it's that I don't give a what you think anymore because of all of the shit that's happened to me. And because of all of the shit that's happened to me, and that, like, I don't want to use the word awakening because that's very like occultish brainwashing, like you're having an awakening, right? Go check out my video on cults, right, and you'll see why that's used to f people over. But that experience of actually having that self-awareness, like, raw, now I'm actually an adult and I can actually live life on my terms, right? And part of that is actually literally just becoming an adult. But a lot of people don't become an adult on their own. They hold other people's hands all the way to old age, right? But I never got that, right? Everyone's hands got cut off, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, my parents died and I was just out here, I had to figure shit out. And luckily I had the internet. So for you, maybe you can catch up a little bit quicker than I have, right? So that second experience of I exist, I actually exist, made me become way more based in the way that I think. Now, I don't want to actually claim to be a black pillar because I'm really not. Like, I'm not a red pillar, I'm not a blue pillar. I still have a certain level of faith and hope in humanity. I say that becoming based, I'm using based like in a really colloquial way, right? I'm not using it in the online way, right? But becoming really facing facts, looking at life for what it actually is, not what I want it to be, not what I was told it was meant to be, not what my mum told me, my dad told me, my girlfriend told me. Like, I blew away all of those clouds of hindrance to my actual real eyes, right? My actual mind and my ability to use my cognitive skills, right? And started looking at the world for what it is, right? And that's what drew me down the kind of rabbit hole of atheism a little bit, right? Which I'm kind of scared to go all the way there with it because I still don't really know. But not just the atheism thing, the dating thing. Like, I've been watching Manosphere content since maybe like 2016, right? So I saw the Kevin Samuels rise. Shout out to BGS, have you seen this, right? Like, I know what's going on in that space, but I still have like a level of separation from it, if I can say that, because I still don't like to conform, right? Maybe I'm just a non-conformist and I don't like being put in these categories because, like Neil deGrasse says, once they attach this ideology to you, they think they know everything there is to know about you. You can never have a conversation, right? I'm more interested in the best ideas and the best answers. So with that means taking a bit of looks-maxing from over here, a bit of nihilism, black pill, stoicism. Like, stoicism is something that got me through lots of hard times. And maybe that's why people might look at me and think, oh, he doesn't have any emotions, or he doesn't care, right? It's not that I don't care, it's not that I don't have any emotions. It's that the harsh reality of life and the things that have happened to me don't allow me to show that outwardly, right? Inside, I've got all kinds of turmoil and chaos going on in my mind, but I don't talk about it, right? I don't use it as a crutch for my reality because I know it doesn't help me. So things, information from Buddhist texts, Zen, Stoicism, red pill stuff, Manosphere stuff, lots of philosophy, all of those things were made available to me through the luck of having internet, right? And just by chance tweaking my algorithm just right so I get the best of everybody, right? But it doesn't just stop there, right? So psychologically, I've used all kinds of coping mechanisms. Even the fact that I lift weights is a mental coping mechanism. Now, not a lot of people will tell you that straight up. They'll be like, oh yeah, I'll go to the gym so I don't go crazy. But it really is a part of that doing hard things. So the hard things in life ain't that tough anymore, right? Like I told you, my parents have died. I've lost friends. Lots of mad shit has happened to me in life, right? That I just don't talk about. But now that I have a mic and a camera, I'm going to talk about them.